Hi everybody, today we are in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 for our 5-minute Bible study. You can get the free PDF on our website at tobelikechrist.com if you want. We're talking about really a continuation of the last chapter. So a lot of the information, especially on the first page, is going to be essentially the same as like the last two chapters. We're talking about a continuation of Solomon's dedication of the temple, and then we'll talk about one event at the end of the chapter that was several years down the road. But we'll go through the first page somewhat quickly because probably if you've been doing this study, you're already familiar with this. So the events of this chapter, of chapter 7, took place in the 11th year of Solomon's reign after he had completed the temple. He ruled for 40 years total, from 1015 to 975 BC. Key characters in chapter 7 are the same as chapter 6, Solomon, the third king of the United Kingdom of Israel and Judah, and then the assembly of Israel, all the people gathered for this momentous occasion of the temple in Jerusalem being dedicated. And I just kind of gave away the key location on our map section. We are in Jerusalem. That's where Solomon's throne was. That's where he ruled from. That's where the temple was built. 3 sections total in this chapter, though it is somewhat of a short chapter, only 22 verses. Verses 1 through 3 is our first section. Fire from heaven and the glory of the Lord fills the temple. So when Solomon finished his prayer of dedication, which is recorded in chapter 6, fire came down from heaven, consumed the offerings that were on the altar in front of the temple, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. When the people saw this, they fell on their faces and they worshiped God. Section number 2, the dedication of the temple continues, verses 4 through 10. Solomon continued sacrificing, and he continued a lot. He offered 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. I don't even know, that's almost an unbelievable amount of animals to sacrifice. A 7-day feast was held in Jerusalem to celebrate the dedication of the temple, and after the 7-day feast of dedication, the people returned to their homes, and the text says they had joy in their hearts. Section number 3, God appears to Solomon after building the temple and his palace. This is verses 11 through 22. Several years later, after the dedication, after Solomon had finished both the temple and his palace, God appeared to him during the night. He told Solomon that he would show him and his people mercy so long as they humbled themselves and followed the divine laws that God had given to them. God promised to support Solomon's reign so long as Solomon was obedient to him, and he warned Solomon not to fall away, especially not to fall into the temptation of worshiping false gods, or the temptation of idolatry. If Israel started worshiping idols, God said, God promised to bring disaster on them and also to bring disaster on the temple. If that happened, Israel would be shamed among the nations, and all the nations would know that their fate was because they did not respect the God who brought them out of Egypt. And so that is the rather short chapter of 2 Chronicles chapter 7. Now we can go down to our application section. It's kind of interesting to me that God cared less about the physical temple than he did about the hearts of the people who worshiped him at that physical temple. He even threatened to destroy the temple if the Israelites became wicked. Which is pretty incredible because the temple was dedicated to God. And yet he says, this physical building, it doesn't mean that much to me, even though it's a marvelous building. What can we learn from this? What lesson can we take away? One thing that we can learn is that God isn't concerned with the size of our programs, our institutions, our church buildings, our Christian colleges, or our online ministries nearly as much as he cares about the hearts of the individuals who are behind those things and running those things. God will not hesitate to tear down a great institution, even when that institution bears his name, if the hearts of the people who run that institution are far from God. God doesn't need magnificent buildings or facilities to make his name great on the earth. He can do that on his own. We shouldn't try to hide wickedness behind great edifices. God will expose those who build great edifices in his name but have never made a home for him in their hearts. If you set out to build a cathedral, a righteous heart is the key element of a proper foundation. If the heart is not right, the building will be in vain.